Through the Prism of God's Love. That's the title today, Through the Prism of God's Love. We're part of a great combining of all of the centers for spiritual living. There's over 100 of us all over the world who are participating in doing the world that works for everyone for this year. And our theme for this month is Awakening to Our Spiritual Magnificence. Awakening to Our Spiritual Magnificence. And humming a little on the way. I'm humming a little. And it's not that I don't like to hum. Anyway, the quote for this week is, we see a world, and this is part of our vision for the Centers for Spiritual Living, we see a world in which unity with God and connection with each other is emphasized. In which unity with God and connection with each other is emphasized. Now, of course, Valentine's Day, we're all about the love. And I was remembering, and I heard last night on Prairie Home Companion, he mentioned, as I was driving home 5 hours from the Bay Area, that it was lovely to listen to all of Prairie Home Companion from beginning to end. But he was talking about the fact that in grammar school, we all gave Valentines to everyone. Do you remember that? We used to give Valentines to everyone. And he said that probably resulted in gay marriage, but but I don't think that was so. But I think that, because we were sending our love out to everyone, and that's really what we're to do, is to send our love to everyone. That is why we're here. Everybody's like, what is my purpose? Well, it's to give love. And that love shows up uniquely through each of us. Now, when we talk about a prism, when I think about a prism, I think about people who used to have them hanging in their windows. And then you would see the light coming through and all these rainbows in the room. So what it does is, because of the angles that it has, it refracts white light into all the colors of the rainbow. And that is the same thing with us. There is one white light at the center of everything. Each of us is an incarnation of that light. That light lives within each one of us. That light is immortal. That light has never been harmed. That light is always whole. And it's present right where we are. And through our own experiences, through our own incarnations, we are refracting that love into all of these beautiful colors and sizes and shapes that we show up in. So we're all coming from the one and then expressing in this myriad of diversity, but all from that same source. Ernest Holmes says, our images of thought arise from within a medium. I'm still popping and humming. I don't know what that is. Our images of thought arise from within a medium in which both the one who sees and that which is seen exist in a state of inner unity. God exists in everything. God exists in me, and because God exists in me, I am able to recognize other beings in whom God exists. Spirit is the medium through which I am conscious of myself, of others, and of my environment. So we are in this unity, each individualized expressions of the one essence that we might call God, Spirit, Source, Universe, whatever you want to call it. It really has no name. And it's everywhere. So when we take on the viewpoint of God, when we take on the viewpoint of love, we are seeing our oneness and our interconnection. I was driving down the highway last night and had a lot of time to read the signs. And I'm still humming. And one of the signs was, when you die, you will meet God. When you die, you will meet God. Well, Ernest Holmes tells us, you meet God every day. You don't meet God in the hereafter. You meet God in the here and now. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do. God is right here, right now, in this room, expressing in and through and as every being in this room. And that, in fact, every single particle of everything in this room is part of that consciousness of creation as well. So we are surrounded by and imbued with this infinite creative life force that is love itself. Love itself. And we know with love all things are possible. And so the book, one of the books that was recommended and that I chose to read for this month, and we have some extra copies if you want it, is Inspired and Unstoppable by Tama Kieves. Wildly succeeding in your life's work. Now, I started the story of Tama last week where I talked about the fact that she was a Harvard-educated lawyer. She was working in a prestigious law firm, and she was just dying there. It was sucking the life right out of her, doing what she was doing. And so she decided that, her friends said, well, if you're doing this well at something you don't love, what happened if you did something you did love? And so she thought about it, and she decided to take the big leap. Because she said, I want to win. And she didn't want to say that, but I want to win. And she said, well, what did winning mean? It meant, she said, I have a home run in me. And I want to hit that home run. So that meant that she had to shift, she had to change, and she had to do what other people told her she shouldn't do. So what she said was, just because you're inspired and you're following your bliss doesn't mean you're not going to run into some obstacles. And sure enough, she did. She says, our vision creates at the subterranean level. Our vision creates at the subterranean level. And you inhabit it now as much as you will live it later. You inhabit it now in consciousness as much as you will live it later. It's who you think you are that creates who you end up being. It's who you think you are that creates who you end up being. So when we're on this path of opening to our inspired life, we have to remember the words of Howard Thurman, who said, keep clear before me the moments of my high resolve. So she found a few things that were obstacles for her. She went to a Passover dinner, and she was seated next to this woman who was very done. She was, perfect in all. Her hair was perfect, her clothes were perfect, her gold jewelry was gloriously shining. And so Tama was sitting next to her, and then she asked Tama what she was doing, and Tama wasn't too comfortable in telling her what she was doing, but she felt compelled. She said she would have rather talked about sex with her ex-boyfriend than discussing what this was about, because, when you're putting yourself out, where she was getting ready to self-publish a book. And so she was feeling vulnerable. Here's this thing. She had spent 12 years writing this book. And now it's going to go out into the world. And so she's feeling very, tender about this. And this woman, she says, well, I'm self-publishing a book. And she said, you know nothing about the publishing business, and you're going into the publishing business? You know nothing about marketing and distribution, and you're going to publish a book? Very ambitious, the lady said. She said it in a way that implied, you are a nut job and stay away from my children. That's what I love about this book. It's really very, very funny. But the thing is, she journals every day, and her journal said, just put it in the river. Just put it in the river. And she said, that meant to put it out there into the flow of life. And in the flow of life, the river meets the sea. It will meet the greater audience that it's intended for. So she knew that just put it in the river meant to devote herself to writing and designing the book with every fiber of excellence that she had. With every fiber of excellence that she had, and it would find its way into the world. She wished she had remembered this saying from Rumi to tell the lady, but Rumi said, don't ask what love makes or does. Look at the colors of the world. Look at the colors of the world. So along the way, she also ran into what she called the dark gods. And that reminds me of what Kathy Mann said earlier this week. We were talking about medicine, and she said, well, Mary Morrissey says MD stands for minor deity. And in this case, the dark god was a representative from one of the major publishing houses who was giving a talk at a writers' conference. And this guy said, he was sort of like, oh, all you poor wannabe writers out there, if your book doesn't make it in the first 6 months, we punt. Well, when he said that, it was sort of like somebody stabbed her in the heart. It was sort of like, oh my God, I only have 6 months, and then they're going to punt? What the heck does that mean? And, what's that going to do? And that, this is my life I'm putting out there, and they're just sort of dismissing it. And so she just got really depressed, and she was just feeling really bad. And then she remembered Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, that he said he warned about the damning power of other people's remarks. Ruiz says, one word is like a spell, and humans use words like black magicians, thoughtlessly putting spells on each other. Thoughtlessly putting spells on each other. So finally she got herself, she put on a Marianne Williamson CD and was listening to the Course in Miracles and sort of got her energy back. And then she realized that his words are just words, and they don't have to be her death sentence. His words are just words. And she remembered how she got into Harvard Law. She had gone to Brooklyn College. She told her dad, she told her counselor, she went to the counselor at Brooklyn College and said, I want to apply to Harvard Law. And he said, well, you've got all the right stuff, but Harvard will never accept you from Brooklyn College. They just don't, unless it's some kind of affirmative action thing. And so she wasn't going to apply. She went home to her dad and said, well, the counselor says don't bother because they're not going to accept me. And her father said, expert schmexpert. Go ahead and apply. He says, what does this guy know? So, okay, she sits at the kitchen table, she fills out the application, she gets a little chicken grease on it because she's eating. And she puts it out into the universe, she sends it off to Harvard, and guess what? They have changed their admissions policies, and they accept her as a student at Harvard Law. So she remembers that, expert schmexpert. The experts are really historians. They know what has worked in the past. They don't know the music that's never been played. They don't know who you are. They don't know what love wants to bring forth now. Something new wants to happen. And so don't let the dark gods discourage us. James Joyce, the author, said, "Mistakes are the portals of discovery." Mistakes are the portals of discovery. And we like to say in this philosophy, no mistakes have been made. No mistakes have been made because everything that has happened has brought you to this point. And in this moment, we are always at choice. In this moment, we can choose how we want to live, where we want to go with what our resources are and what our gifts are. So she self-published her book, and it started getting local success and movement, and it hit the Denver Post bestseller list. It hit the Denver Business Journal bestseller list. And then 4 months later, she got a call from a former vice president and one of the major publishing houses who was going through her own crisis and read this book. And she said, "This is the best book I've ever seen on following your calling." And so she said, "I have a friend who's the president of Penguin Tarcher. I will give him a call." And guess what? Penguin Tarcher published her book. And they gave her a lucrative contract and solid publicity plans. She said, "We cannot plan an inspired life. We cannot plan an inspired life. We just have to take the next step. We have to follow that inner guidance. We have to feel our way and let love lead, just like the song said. We have to let our love be our guide, lead us to our next place to be. Because just because we've had this one dream and maybe we've achieved that one dream doesn't mean we can't have another dream. Because we're infinite beings. We have a connection to the infinite intelligence. And so we can move on to the next dream. But we can't plan it because it follows its own path, just like the river will change course, depending on where the easiest way to flow is. So we are like that river. And each of us has that capability and probability and possibility of living a life that we find inspiring. And the thing is, it doesn't have to look like anything spectacular to anybody else. This weekend, I was visiting my dear friend Janet. We've been friends for 56 years. We were friends in junior high. She always said, "I want to be a mom." That was what her goal was. I want to be a mom. She's a mom. She's a grandmother. And in her house, she had this sign that says, "Family, the center of life's meaning." For her, her inspired life is about being mom to the kids, being the very best source of unconditional love that she can be, and to enjoy her children. She was sitting watching a video of her granddaughter, who just turned 4, eating a sour candy. And she put it in her mouth, and then she's like getting all these phases, I'm going to spit it out. And Janet was laughing so hard, tears were streaming down her face. She was just in so much joy. We have to go where our joy is. We have to follow our own inner guidance, our own love, and not worry about what anybody else tells us we should be doing, could be doing. We have to just follow that inner light because we are all created from star stuff. The carbon in our body is from exploded stars. We know this. So each of us is a miracle, is an incarnation of the miraculous. And as we continue to move forward in expressing who and what we are, we're guided to paths that we may not have seen before, maybe the world hasn't seen before. And it's fine. It's fine for us to be that, to do that, to have that. To be what we're called to be. I just heard a thing on the radio, and apparently in Finland, there's some vigilantes who go out at night in black jackets looking for immigrants who might be doing wrong things in their city. And so they are now followed by a group of clowns with red noses, bathrobes, who sing children's song and just follow them down the street, singing and dancing. And it's like, yay. You know, who could have imagined that? Who could have imagined that? I love that. I love that. Sometimes, you know, we have to let go of an old dream and get a new dream, but, you know, let's keep knowing that when we're inspired to do something, we follow through. We give it our all. We give it our heart. So, this week's affirmation is, I celebrate love and oneness with spirit and all beings. I celebrate love and oneness with spirit and all beings. I celebrate love and oneness with spirit and all beings. I celebrate love and oneness with spirit and all beings. And so it is.